Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Do you have an app idea that you've been dreaming about but don't know how to actually start building it? Use Bubble. I've been using Bubble for a number of years now. It's an extremely powerful no-code platform that enables you to build, launch, and scale real products without investing thousands of dollars on engineers, designers, or spending time trying to code it yourself. Use Bubble's visual drag and drop tool to create really anything from marketplaces, SaaS products, and so much more. Join over 2 million people, including myself, already using Bubble to launch and grow businesses. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Philipp Zimmerer. He's a core contributor at Spool FI or FI. Philipp, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kevin. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what Spool's doing and your role there is actually really innovative and cool. But maybe before we get into all that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure. I was born and raised in Regensburg in Germany. It's a medium town in southern Germany, right?
Very cool. So you went to university. What did you take and why?
Actually, I went to university. I moved to the Netherlands for university. I studied international economics and business economics. And I went there mostly because I did an exchange year in Chicago in 2008. And when I arrived, right, my host dad was heavily invested in the stock market or at least somewhat invested in the stock market. And I kind of saw how the economy can affect lives, and in the 2008 crash, I just saw him get a little bit agitated about it, and I started really getting interested in what's happening there, right? So I wanted to learn more about economics, and that's how I chose my path.
Interesting. Okay, very cool. So walk us through your career up until becoming a part of Spool, and then let's dive into that.
Sure. So actually, my career is it's pretty colorful, right? So after university, I tried for a while to get on my feet, somehow start doing something on my own. I was really heavily into sports back then, so I just tried to develop some new workout and training programs, just do things on my own, follow my passions and so on, right? But I quickly noticed that I need to find a real job, right? So I started working in startups. And eventually I stumbled upon crypto, right? And that was 6 years ago now. And I started investing as a hobby, right? But it quickly became more serious. I found some like-minded people. Crypto does that, right? It builds community and it connects across the world. And those people turned into really close friends, and then eventually business partners and associates, right? And we started a company called Faculty Capital that still exists to this day. We started out building a market maker and starting to provide liquidity for token markets that are relatively small, growing from there. And yeah, Faculty Capital eventually grew into what is now Faculty Group, which is a group of multiple companies spanning various areas of cryptocurrency. So we still have the market making company. There's marketing, we incubate projects, we consult, and we build ourselves, right? We have, there's our own studio. And that's basically where Spool was kind of ideated, right? It came out of my own consulting work, observing the market, seeing what do projects struggle with, what are current trends, what's going on. And yeah, I started having this idea for Spool there, right? Because I saw like across all of the things that I was doing there, it was a very, very varied kind of environment. I started seeing similar pain points emerge, and I tried to figure out a way to fix them. And that's essentially what led me to Spool, right? More about that later, I guess. But yeah, that's my career so far.
Okay. So how did you come up with the exact idea for Spool, and what exactly is it?
Yeah, I mean, it all started with the DeFi summer in 2020, right? So
Right.
I think we can like do a quick primer on DeFi. I think a good way of explaining that is essentially decentralized finance tries to uh, find and build new ways of putting capital to work productively, right? So regular finance or interest, right, as many people know it, works in a way where you are providing capital, which is, for example, your savings, right, to a
Yep.
third-party entity that then puts your capital to work productively by investing it, by buying up treasury bonds from governments, getting paid for it, and then giving you back a part of the proceeds, right, that your capital generated as
Right.
your interest rate, right? DeFi takes all of that on chain and uses blockchain technology to build new financial primitives and new financial products that can generate a yield, right, based off of some productive activity. Maybe it's someone borrowing your funds, right, and paying you an interest rate for it, or it might be in a liquidity pool that enables other to trade and execute trades at a better execution rate, but paying you fees for the liquidity that you're providing, right? All of these are different sources of what we call yield.
Right.
Now, there is a very varied sort, like it's a very wide array of sources of yield generators, right? Many different protocols doing different things, asking users for their funds temporarily to put it to use and generate a yield off of it. So I was figuring, hey, if this exists in real life, right? If
Hmm.
then and we're copying it and bringing it on chain in DeFi, then don't we also need something like financial services? Like in real life, you would have a bank, you would have a teller. You don't, as a regular person, you don't go and invest directly into these primitives that actually generate your yields, right? You would go to a financial services provider, or you would buy an ETF, right? Or you would buy a fixed income product somewhere that then helps you invest that and invest your funds and your capital to generate that yield for you. But that didn't exist in DeFi, right? It was kind of a wild west. Everyone was going directly to the primitives, making investment decisions they're really not equipped to. So what Spool really was supposed to be is an infrastructure that allows providers to build flexible businesses on top of DeFi, right? Because my idea was yield, right? Generating interest on your money, that's something everyone wants, right? Because it's
Sure.
really what we need to do to outperform inflation, right? But and DeFi offers very attractive opportunities for that, but they're very hard to access and they're very complicated. It's very hard for you to see the risks in that, right?
Yep.
So I
Interesting.
thought there need to be financial services that make this easier for people. And these financial services, they need code because it's all code based. It's all on the internet, right? They need a simple like infrastructure slash toolbox to access all of these yields to build products that they can then market to the according audiences. And this is Spool, right? Spool is a middleware that makes all of these different DeFi or financial primitives that generate yield accessible ultimately to the end user without needing to know about all of this stuff and without needing to know how to read code, how to read smart contracts, etc. Right? You just get to the good stuff right away.
Okay. Very cool. So walk us through then how somebody would actually use the platform. I get it's like, can you maybe just generally, because
Yeah.
you can get pretty technical pretty quickly, right?
No, let's keep it super high level, right? So as an end user, you would probably not even know that you're using Spool, right? Because you would
Okay.
probably access Spool or use Spool through a product that you found. So like as an end
Ah,
user, you might go you might have let's say a couple $1,000s at your disposal and you'd go, hey, I want to invest this somewhere where I can get a like a flexible yield, but I also want to keep full access to my funds, right? I wanna be able to withdraw like it's a checking account, right? So you go on the App Store or you go on Google and research, hey, how can I invest flexibly, right? And then someone or some party or some company building an application on top of Spool would be marketing there, right? They would be advertising there. Like, let's say some personal finance app that rounds up your coffee purchase and invests that for you, something like that, something that like, or something more innovative than that, right? Because that already exists, right? Just an example that everyone understands. And this party would have built a financial product on top of Spool that taps into all of these different yield primitives, right? That we're making accessible for these companies, right? So that's one example. That's one user story, right? That's for your average retail user that wants nothing except to go on an app, wire $1,000 through whatever payment app or a bank wire or whatever they're using, right? And then see their funds, their capital tick up slowly based on the interest rate that we're generating. But this is not some sort of like scheme or anything, right? Your funds are routed through the provider that you've chosen, through Spool's middleware infrastructure, straight into protocols that actually do something like provide liquidity or enabling borrowing over collateralized lending that actually generates that yield for you, right? So you DeFi is really cool because it can zap your money very quickly into these yield generating opportunities, whereas a bank would take a couple business days to actually start doing anything for you and your funds will be locked up. In DeFi, the user can just zap it back out, back into their real wallet, right? And make use of the funds and the interest that they've generated, right? And that's an end user story, right? We're making that accessible for them.
Okay, got it. So if I'm a developer or I'm a company, how do I get Spool into my product to basically build an app, maybe like what you outlined or something else?
Perfect. Yeah, that's another user story, right? And that's the perfect question actually, because you're getting now really into like the meat of the value add that Spool really brings, right? So now I'm a developer and I see, hey, there's all of this yield out there. I could build a really cool financial product out of this, right?
Sure.
But hey, all of these different protocols, right? They have all different smart contracts. So I need to build an adapter for all of these, right? I need to build adapters that allow me to funnel the money in and then compound whatever token I'm receiving or whatever yield I'm receiving, and then funnel that back out in the base asset that I put in. Because some of the yield is generated as an ERC20 token that you would have to then sell off on a different exchange, right? To actually get to the yield in the dollars that you've put in, right? And it can get very, very complex because there's so many protocols out there. And then all of them have like different sort of risk characteristics to it, right? They're risky in different ways, shape, or form. So you would need to perform a proper audit on these protocols as well, because again, right, blockchain is a very open system. Anyone can create fake products as well, right? So you might be tapping into a fake product that actually steals your money, right? What Spool does for you though is we are building all of these adapters, all of these infrastructure, right? And we're actually providing a risk management infrastructure as well, where you can tap into professional risk providers, risk scoring outputs that give you a clear idea of, hey, how risky is this protocol as a whole? What risks are associated with it? How is the yield generated? How are the funds used? What are possible ways where this could go wrong, right? In this way, we are giving you sort of a no-code platform that allows you to assemble the product that fits the exact like sort of risk appetite and risk reward structure of your given audience, right?
Sure.
And as a developer, right, the clear advantages with Spool, you'll have your product ready within 10 minutes because it's a no-code platform. All the adapters are pre-configured. All you're doing is go through a 5-step process of assembling the yield generating product of your choice that you can then, through our SDK, embed in your UI, your brand, your front end, whatever you're choosing. And then your end user will never even hear about Spool, right? They will just see your product and they will see it generates this amount of yield at current rates, because this is all of the information that Spool is live feeding through our SDK and through our APIs, right? So you can just display that and you have a financial service ready to go, and if your front end's ready, in less than 30 minutes.
Fascinating. Okay. Very cool. Can you maybe give us some other use cases of how people have actually implemented Spool, either in their own apps, and then what does the customer kind of see?
Yeah, for sure. So some other use cases are obviously institutions, right? So institutional investors in crypto and in blockchain, as you might know, right? Storing your assets, your crypto has this mantra of being your own bank, right?
Right.
But storing your own assets gets kind of iffy very quickly, right? Because if
Sure.
you're in charge of remembering your own private key, that means you're one like seed phrase getting lost or forgetting something away from actually losing access to all of your assets, right? Now, this
Yep.
is fine with certain amounts, but if you're an institution that is potentially holding other clients' assets, you're going to engage a professional custodian, right?
Right.
So what we're doing with Spool is we're really taking an institutional approach here. We're trying to create accessibility for institutions, and for that we're working with custodian partners, right? For example, such as Fireblocks or Ledger, to make these yields available for their customers while they're holding custody. Now, let's walk through two scenarios, with Spool and without Spool. So without Spool, if I'm an institution having $100 million custodied with some custodian, and I'm asking these guys, hey, I see an opportunity to generate a risk-free or a low-risk 6% yield on my assets in crypto, can you please deposit my funds here, here, and here, right? Then the custodian is kind of in trouble, right? Because he needs to they need to diversify these assets between the chosen protocols, right? Interact with different UIs. Not really like there's a lot of things that can go wrong here, right?
Sure.
Whereas with Spool, they can simply use our platform and generate smart vaults as specified by their depositors, right? By the institution that they're holding the assets for, right? And
Yep.
just create that smart vault that they're asking for and simply deposit through a single point of access, right? That we're giving. So we're basically pre-configuring everything. We're providing the rails for them to simply deploy the capital in the exact way that their customer specified. So we're making their life super easy that way, and we're finding like we're getting great feedback for this side of the of Spool, right, of the user experience. And this is, for example, I think our one of our most exciting use cases, because it solves a real problem, right? Custodians institutions hold funds with custodians, but they would also like to take advantages of what like passive yield they could be generating. But custodians have been facing this issue of there not being enough infrastructure for them to effectively deploy this amount of capital without feeling like kind of iffy about potentially losing some of it or making a mistake, right? Spool solves all of that and just creates a streamlined experience for them.
Interesting. Okay. No, that makes sense. So you're a core contributor. What does that really mean? And you can basically lose your power. Like, explain your role, because it's a different, it's not, I think a lot of people don't work on a project the way that, being a core contributor to something actually works. So I think maybe just explain what that is and why it's unique.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting, right? So when we bootstrapped Spool, right, we kind of started to feel the need of it needing to be a very democratically accessible platform, right? Because
Okay. Yeah.
we are trying to build, now this is a crypto culture kind of thing, right? So
Yeah.
we're trying to build middleware, we're trying to build infrastructure that allows access to DeFi primitives, right? Now imagine a future where Spool actually routes tons and tons of capital. Like we capture a large market share, and we route a ton of the capital that is actually flowing into these yield generating protocols, right? So we would technically, if we were a centralized entity, we would kind of have the power to start bullying some of these protocols, right? By not showing them in the UI or not building adapters for them, and basically cutting them out of all of this capital that could be routed through Spool, right? And this introduces like a lot of room for bad behavior. So we wanted to sort of open up and make all of these decision-making processes more transparent. So we started Spool as a DAO, which means we have a governance token called VoSpool that you can acquire by getting the native token Spool and staking it, and then VoSpool, which is your governance power, starts accruing in your wallet. So the longer you're with us, the stronger your voice grows, right? So to avoid any problems like someone buying a bunch of tokens, making some troll votes, and then selling them again without being actually affected by their own troll votes.
Right.
And in this way, we are kind of building a sort of democratic council. Everyone that wants to be part of Spool can be part of Spool by accumulating VoSpool and helping us, for example, decide which protocol to include next, right? Or which protocol to make accessible within Spool. And I think it creates a very interesting dynamic because we kind of rely on wisdom of the crowds to pick up on new trends, pick up on new protocols that might become interesting. And one of the things is, for example, us now deploying on an Ethereum layer 2 called Arbitrum and making strategies accessible there because the community asked for it, right? And this power, like you alluded to, I can lose my power in the sense that all of the core contributors are appointed by the people with the VoSpool, right? So when there's a proposal of, hey, this person has like this idea of how to improve Spool, how to work on Spool, or we want to hire this developer for this purpose for Spool. So therefore, we would like to ask the DAO for this amount, $80,000 a year, to retain this person to work for the DAO on implementing new strategy, right? This is put to a vote for all VoSpool voters to actually free up that capital and allow us to actually pay for these contributors. So in that sense, right, I could lose my power if the community or if a majority of VoSpool voters decided I'm not doing a great job, you know, they could launch a proposal and ask for my removal in that sense, right? So I think that's very important to keep everyone accountable. Another thing that is very public is the project's finances, right? Everyone can see our like finances on chain, right? Every movement of funds and so on is perfectly visible. So this removes all agency, right? I couldn't even even if I wanted to, I couldn't even steal the funds because they're in a multi-sig wallet, which is a wallet that requires multiple people to sign from their individual wallets to actually enable a transaction, right? So nobody can take the money and run. Nobody can pay for their expensive dinners or their business class flights without everyone knowing about it. And I think this is a really cool way of like really making sure that shareholders are or token holders are appropriately represented, right?
Yeah, totally. Because I think a lot of companies need that, whether they're on, you know, in the financial, like right? Like I think every company almost needs that in some respects, right? So I'm curious, obviously crypto right now is kind of all doom and gloom and even tech in general. What do you, or where do you see the state of the industry? Like I own some crypto. I think it'll come back. Like I think it's here to stay. So like I'm not all doom and gloom, just for some context, but how do you see the state of the industry and where are we really at, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I'm a bit of a weird case there because I've been in crypto for such a long time, you know, and usually when you meet guys like me, you would assume they're like diehard crypto bulls, you know, they're gonna tell you everything's going to the moon and everything's the future. But I think I take a little bit of a more grounded approach when it comes to all of it. I think that like crypto is not like a homogenous industry, right? Crypto is an idea that is in a way also pretty like sort of, I guess, almost libertarian in a way where, hey, this is a network, this is a platform, this is sort of an open financial market, and you can try whatever you want on here. Nobody's going to stop you, right?
Right.
Naturally, an environment like this will also always attract bad actors, right? People that
Sure.
will make false promises, sell tokens very quickly. It's a very liquid and very fast market, right? Drum up a hype cycle for a new token, make a bunch of promises, sell the token, and then sort of pull the slow fade and never really deliver on your promises. Just hire some team that sits somewhere on the other end of the world and to do something so it doesn't look like you completely exit scammed, right? And just do that. And there's no real way of punishing that in crypto. And as long as that doesn't exist, I think a lot of like crypto will always be sort of, yeah, kind of attained on the reputation of the industry. And the sad thing is that all of these things, they really hide a lot of the innovation, because there's a good
Sure.
side to crypto as well. There's a lot of really, really good things going on, right? Like in DeFi, if you think about it, are financial opportunities really like fairly accessible to everyone? Like if I told you right now there's a guy with $50 million and someone else with $50,000, would you say yes or no? Yeah, these guys have the same opportunities available to them financially, regardless of the amount. I'm purely talking about percentage returns on what they would be making, right?
Right. Yeah. I guess. Well,
Probably
yeah.
not so much, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So DeFi kind of evens the playing field there, right? Because like I just told you, the way DAOs are structured, the way the protocols are structured, anyone can access them in the way that they want, right? So there's a lot of cool things happening here in crypto, because technically you could have a financial environment where financial opportunities are equally available to everyone and not blocked by things like, oh, you're not rich enough, so you can't get an account with the right like asset managers or at the right private bank. Oh, well, you're not over this arbitrary line of $1 million, so you're not an accredited investor. Sorry, we have to keep you out of all of the good deals, right? All of this technically doesn't have to exist. It's kind of blocking people from having equal financial opportunities. I think that DeFi is, for example, one of the very, very promising things, regardless of market fluctuations, doom and gloom, which you originally asked about, that can really have a long-term positive impact on people and their financial opportunities, right? And
Yeah.
I think that we can zoom out from short-term doom and gloom. How do tokens perform? What's the Bitcoin price tomorrow? What's it going to be in a week? And we can really think about what's actually being built that adds long-term value to people, that offers new opportunities, and that really fulfills this promise of crypto, of giving new financial opportunities to people, of being your own bank, being your own master when it comes to your own financial future.
No, 100%. I always relate it to kind of the early days of the internet. Well, in the 90s, I would say, when it's starting to hit kind of mass, people were like, this is not going to be around. This is terrible. Nobody's ever going to use this. And now look where the internet is today, right?
Yeah.
Even though it was created, late 70s. So like, it's interesting to me, just to your point a second ago, is there's so much tech being built on it that will be used in the future, and people will be, their transactions will be on the blockchain, and or even maybe get run through crypto and not even know it, right? It's just, and arguably, I always say the perfect example is we've been using cryptocurrency for a number of years. Like if you have a Starbucks card and you load American money on it or whatever currency, you can go to another country and swipe your Starbucks card and it works, right? And you get your coffee. And it's like a simple basic form of crypto. Maybe it doesn't have all the blockchain stuff behind it, but it's the same concept we've been using currently, right? For a number of years without thinking about it.
Exactly. No, in the example that you just mentioned, right? No real money gets moved, right? There is no dollar bills moving somewhere around. It's balances on a ledger, and crypto is simply a decentralized ledger where these balances are publicly accessible and trustless, right? And immutable.
Totally. So you brought up something before we were recording that I've been thinking a lot about, and I think a lot of people have. I think millennials, especially sometimes, and maybe some older generations and some younger generations, is how inflation has really affected everyone, right? And
Yeah.
how do we keep up with it, or what are your thoughts around that? Because I think a lot of people have been thinking about that or struggling with inflation lately.
Yeah, it's been on my mind like for quite a long time. I'm gonna turn 30 this year, and I have a lot of friends, like the peers that I went to university with, to school with,
Sure.
right? And our generation kind of struggles. Like, it's really, really hard for people nowadays to afford something that previous generations took for granted, like owning their own home, right?
Totally.
And I
Yep.
think a lot of that has to do with how prices are developing versus wages, right? How inflation is sort of slowly disowning us, kind of, without us even noticing. And then a general apathy, because I think economics is super fascinating, and economics is in all of our lives, right? Like, the
Right.
economy affects us all, whether we want it or not. But we're kind of being taught, hey, this is a boring topic, leave this to the smart bankers, to the smart people to figure out. Don't worry about it, just follow the path that we've laid out for you in life, right?
Yep.
But the reality is that our generation, more than ever, needs ways to, like, generate money or generate capital off of their income, right? And start compounding, and to keep up with inflation, or even to beat inflation, because otherwise, how are we ever going to, as a generation, right, afford our own homes, afford to start families, right? These are the questions that are relevant for our generation, right?
Totally.
So this is also part of the reason why Spool is being built, right? And why we're trying to build out Spool, because I think, right, I think now we're kind of coming full circle on this whole chat that we've been having, right? DeFi offers financial opportunities, but on paper, right? But technically, they're super hard to access, because you need to kind of be into crypto, right? You need to
Right.
be able to assess smart contracts. You don't know what the risks are. You might go into, like, oh wow, I found this new awesome yield opportunity that yields me 300% per year, and then your lizard brain kicks in, and you go in there, and then obviously it turns out to be like non-sustainable, or even a scam, and you lose your money, right? And this is like sort of the difficult part. The opportunities are there, but they're so vast. You need to find a way to access them easily and securely, right? And this is what I kind of see as our mission. It's to build a new generation of financial products for a new generation, right, of people, that allows easy access to hopefully enable everyone, no matter what their financial literacy is, to start, like, finding a way to at least wean off inflation to some degree, right? And combat it, and just do better for themselves, and hopefully afford everything they want for themselves in their lives.
Interesting. No, I agree with you. I think it's interesting. But what advice do you give to people? Because doing your own investments is scary, and it's very easy to get burned, right?
Yeah. So what advice would I give people? Like, my number one advice is, I don't give investment advice, right? Like,
Fair enough.
I with friends and family, I kind of, funny story, right? Like, I made my experiences, when you start giving advice, like, people ask you, whoa, why, you made some money with crypto. Hey, can you give me some advice? You can go down one out of two roads, right? Like, either you give them some advice that works out, they make money,
Yeah.
they will say, wow, I'm a genius investor, good on me that I made the right decisions. Or they lose money with it, in which case they're like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't my fault. Phil gave me bad advice. Phil, what's up, man? Why did you tell me to, like, get into this? It was garbage, right?
Right. Yeah.
So this is sort of, I was like, nope, yeah, I'm done with this. I'm not gonna give any more advice. And I think we could instead give people more general advice, right? The more general advice is, don't let greed cloud your judgment, right? Do proper due
Yeah.
diligence, and when you trust a third party with your money, always think about what could be some hidden agendas there, right? Do you see through every like sort of intention these parties that you're investing with have? If you don't understand what you're investing in and where the yield or where the money is coming from, then traditionally you're the yield for someone else, right? That's my
Right.
advice.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, because you're right. Like, everybody was saying buy Bitcoin a number of years ago, and a lot of people got burned, right? And not saying, it just is what it is, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard, right? So I'm curious, where do you see the future of kind of Web3 and kind of blockchain and crypto? Like, I get they're all completely unrelated, but kind of related at the same time.
Mhm.
Do you have any predictions? Like, do you think AI and machine learning are going to be really heavily into kind of the DeFi space, or the crypto space, or what are your thoughts?
So I think that like crypto will continue to be sort of a hotbed for innovation, both innovation that is actually viable and very, very large bubbles, right? So I
Mhm.
think that there's like a lot of ambition that is being kind of stripped down and marketed within crypto. Like AI, machine learning, metaverses are all of these concepts that are seemingly trivialized because, hey, I think these things are going to be big in the future, so I'm going to buy a token that says it's related to that topic, right?
Right.
That's kind of what happens, and then massive bubbles blow up until someone realizes, hey, now all of these tokens are worth billions, but the metaverse looks like a Nintendo 64 game. So
Right.
maybe this is overvalued. Then it just goes the other way, right? And now then the next thing happens. It's like AI. Wow, yeah, ChatGPT, amazing. Let's buy all the AI coins out there. And then maybe at some point we'll realize that actual real AI is still a little bit of a ways off, and that little way is actually pretty hard, like includes some pretty hard challenges to overcome. So maybe it's still going to take a while, and then that goes back as well, right? But I think it's some of these things they're going to stick at some point, right? And then
Yeah.
I think that blockchain and crypto is going to be at the forefront of it, right? So DeFi, by the way, went through the same kind of cycle. I'm coming back to DeFi because it's really my core of expertise.
Right.
DeFi kind of exploded. People started building like experiments, new ways of money that just generated massive amounts of yield. But then they had like all of these flywheels going, but flywheels can turn the other way, right? So they
Right.
became reflexive and collapsed. So we basically had a generation of transparent Ponzi schemes, right? Like
Right.
afterwards everyone saw, hey, actually this was a Ponzi scheme. It wasn't run by a single person. It was run by a smart contract, and we were kind of all buying into it. Like, and I think that kind of smudged the name of DeFi, and it's kind of an issue, right?
Sure.
And it's also one thing of crypto. The things that are flashiest and perform best are also often the most risky. Then people get suckered into it because it's flashy, and then they get burnt because it collapses. And then they're not going to be differentiating, oh, wow, maybe this just wasn't the right, like, actual DeFi. Maybe it was my fault. They're going to say, no, all of DeFi is a scam. It doesn't work. And right now we're trying to kind of dig ourselves out of that hole. So I know this was kind of an unorganized answer, but it kind of paints a picture, right, of these like hype cycles that are happening within crypto. So I think all of them will go through the same way, right? Like metaverse, AI, all
Yeah.
of them, they're gonna blow up. A lot of unreal expectations are gonna be built up. At some point, someone's gonna call bullshit. Sorry, I don't know if I can
No, it's
swear.
fine. Yeah.
And then it's all going to collapse, right? A lot of people are going to have bought at the peak, lose a lot of money. And then that's when like you enter this quiet cycle where real innovation is built. And this is where we're at in DeFi right now, right?
Yeah. Interesting. I agree with you. I think, I don't think it's um like a mishmash answer. I think the reality is that's just kind of where the space is right now, right? And I think openly talking about the pros and cons of what's happening right now are extremely important, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it makes a lot of sense. The one thing I hear sometimes, because blockchain, for example, is such kind of a buzzword right now, everybody, or well, maybe some non-technical people think that they need to build everything on the blockchain. And I think sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. What are your thoughts around when to use some of these technologies and when not to use some of these technologies?
Do you want the nice answer or the real and cynical answer?
Why don't you give us both?
All right. So I think the nice answer is you should use blockchain when you actually see a genuine use case in there, right? Like if you can't explain to me how your product is better with blockchain or even only possible with blockchain than without, then you probably shouldn't build on blockchain. If you build on blockchain anyway, then it's because of my cynical answer. It's because it's a market or again, right? Like it's a platform where you can very, very quickly generate a hype and then monetize that hype by selling tokens to people, which are not like registered securities or anything, which means you don't really actually owe these people or these investors anything. So you can very easily make a lot of money out of hot air and damage everyone else that is trying to build legit things and then ride off into the sunset with your bags of money, right? So yeah, those are the two answers.
No, interesting. No, I love the honesty, to be honest. So we're kind of coming to the end of the show, but I really do you have any other advice for people that are looking to maybe build something in the DeFi space or any other advice that you've learned along the way as an entrepreneur?
Oh man, wow, there's so much advice because like I made so many mistakes, and I learned so much from them. I guess the core advice would be like, don't stress too much because you will make a ton of mistakes. You just will. That's why you don't stress about it. You don't stress about it at all because you will, and you will learn from them and you will grow from them. And I think that people get stuck in analysis paralysis of wanting to do everything right the first time around. And this is probably the biggest mistake that you can avoid. My advice would be, if you want to do something, just go and try to do it, and you will probably fail. You will get stuck in your tracks within the first couple weeks, and it's okay because you're going to understand why you got stuck. Then you're going to have your next idea, and then you're going to make it to 3 months. And the third time, you're going to make it all the way and raise a seed round, and then you're going to have your own product on the way, right? And this means if you make it to the third time where you're actually taking off, that means your first 2 tries weren't actually mistakes. They were just part of your path to getting there, right? And this is my core advice. Just go and do it.
How did you get over that fear and actually do it? Because I had the same issue and I got over it. And I'm curious to know, what made you actually decide to keep going and get over that fear?
Man, I just talked a big game, like Spool, like the version 1 of Spool that is out right now and working. It's actually version 3 of Spool because our first 2 just got stuck somewhere along the way, right? But I already had talked a big game of saying, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then I had the choice of like, oops, hey, I failed. This is not going to work this way. Do I want to do it again, or do I want to go back and tell everyone that I'm not doing it after all? And yeah, I just decided, nope, I'm not going to give anyone, like, I'm just going to keep moving out of spite and I'm just going to find a way to do it, right? That's how I got over it. Just, I didn't want to be seen as the guy who like gave up or talked a big game and then didn't deliver.
No, I think that's actually really good advice. But we're out of time. So how about we close with mentioning where people could get more information about yourself, Spool, and any other links you want to mention?
Yeah, just follow us on Twitter at SpoolFi and join our Discord. Like all the links to our socials are on Twitter, so start there at SpoolFi on Twitter and just reach out to me. I'm on Discord every single day. I'm very open. Like it's a DAO, right? It's a super open culture. Just get involved in the DAO. You don't need to do anything. Just come into the Discord and chat, right?
Perfect, Philip. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you and have a good rest of your day, man.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for listening until the end. See you around.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.